let me run over a couple of quick house rules for everybody, just so that we all know we are recording today's session. So if you need to drop off at any time, please feel free to go back and have a look at the recording after today. We've got lots of fantastic resources that'll be coming out with that as well. We are going meeting style. We're trying something a little bit different. We want to open up for questions for anybody who wants to get involved with today's discussion. And we've got chat going. So if you have questions, we will be getting to those. So drop them into the chat box. We will be monitoring those. We will most likely go to those questions at the end of today because we do have a lot of content we want to get through. If there's anything that's super burning that you want to answer, just tag myself or Emily and we can jump in and help give Jeremy the nod to say, hey, we need to answer this question now. So we're going to kick off because we want to get through everything we've got on for today. I would love to, first of all, just acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are all coming together today from all the different parts across the country, and pay respects to their elders past and present. And a big hello and thank you to everybody for being here. Jeremy for being here today too, to take us through our topic. We're talking about personalized learning journeys, because we know that in 2025 personalization is the thing. If you are not personalizing and if you're not using a Netflix style approach to talk to your members, we're losing engagement. So we brought somebody on who is deep in the trenches with this and working across a lot of associations, who's going to give us a look-see as to what they're doing and what their clients are doing. But we're going to be exploring this through the lens of education, because we know that this is the backbone of a lot of the things that our members are asking of us. And we have Jeremy Burnett from D2L. And Jeremy comes to us with quite a lot of experience working across multiple industries. So he's the perfect person to guide today's conversation. So Jeremy, I'm going to hand it over to you and I will stay in the chat for any questions that pop up.
Thanks very much, Angela, for that fantastic introduction. You took the words right out of my mouth. My name is Jeremy. I'm here from not particularly sunny Melbourne, but I've decided to give up and just accept the fact that I'm going to have a very high power bill in the next few months and just turn on the heater and be comfortable. So that's been my general approach for the last week or so now. Just started sharing my screen, and I'm just going to hop into the slideshow here. Where is the right part of it? Is that new? Excuse me, just so I find I think they've moved it around. Where is
Click on
you?
slideshow. Click on slideshow, Jeremy, and then you should be able to start presentation.
Yes, where is that though? Have I gone
Go
blind?
up. Go.
Oh, right in front of
There
me.
it is.
Wow, what a
Everyone's
shocker.
allowed to slip up.
Absolutely. Please know I'm more knowledgeable in education and associations than I am with PowerPoint. I'm sure it used to be under view, but there you go. So look, what we're finding. Sorry, my name's Jeremy, as I said. I'm working with D2L, and I've been working in the association space for a little over a year now. Previously in education technology for about 11 years. What we're finding more and more is that associations are really looking to weave education through the member experience as opposed to just having it as a specific benefit. So really looking to integrate education with everything that an association offers in order to really sort of drive that value, that value. So today we're going to talk about personalized learner journeys and how to use technology to help achieve that. I'm going to open things up and show you what it looks like in our platform Brightspace, although I'm not going to be too specific to Brightspace. And then we might end with some examples of clients who've done some of these things and also actionable steps for you to take. Okay. So we're going to start off with a poll here. Emily, if you could get the poll up. And it's just a relatively straightforward question. How important is education to associations? I'm not going to click on it myself. I'm very keen to hear what people say with this. Is it very important? Is it somewhat important? Is it not particularly important, or is it not at all important? And we'll give this a few more minutes and then we'll sort of see how we go. So there's a pretty clear front runner emerging at present. We'll give it about another 10 seconds and I think we can display the answers. Okay, Emily, are we able to show the results here?
Yeah, can you see them, Jeremy?
It looks the same to me, so yep, that's fine. I'm looking at it right now. So I can see that some 73% of people, so it's 32 of the respondents said that it's very important. 11 out of 44, so another 25% said it is somewhat important. So that is 98% of people said it's either very important or somewhat important, which is very encouraging, but also not particularly surprising to hear, just in terms of the importance of education and some of the value that does offer to associations. And this kind of really, let me see if I can get this poll. This really is in concert with what we've seen with other studies or other surveys. I was at in a webinar a few months ago. They had a straw poll and had very much a similar sort of thing. According to the Association Trends study in 2024, people listed some of the key benefits of association membership. And you can see there's 54% providing industry-specific information. This is what you guys are best at, right? This is what the association can really offer. It's specific industry information to their members. Things like providing targeted, valuable content. The word targeted really leaps out at me as well. So all of this can be realized through the use of a learning management system. This really sort of builds engagement, loyalty, and it really reinforces the association's value proposition. So, how do we achieve this? How do we go about boosting engagement? Because I know that this is what a lot of people here on this call are looking to find out about today. So, there's sort of multiple ways that this is sort of done. So, first of all, delivering tangible member value. Now, this might manifest itself in things like CPD points, certification. This really demonstrates your commitment to the growth as an association. Continuous flexible learning. So the ability to be able to do this learning 24/7. You might be on the bus. I hate doing this, but I hold up my very old iPhone, being able to say, hey, listen, I can even do it on my iPhone when I'm on the bus. Something very quick and easy to do, which is what members are really, really crying out for, especially younger members. It fosters ongoing interaction, so it really helps sort of build those communities of practice, touch points sort of beyond just the annual events and the newsletter, being able to engage with your members in many different ways and encouraging logging on frequently, being active in the learning management system really creates a sense of belonging and of purpose. In terms of the personalizing the member experience, we're going to talk a little bit about that later on, about creating adaptive learning paths that they can use. Data-driven engagement. So much of what we do is really advised by the data, the rich data that we can get, and therefore the questions that we can ask that flow on from that. Not just did they complete the learning, but we can go into a little bit more detail there. In terms of amplifying events and conferences, really important to help get the most out of those events. I'm sure you all know that events are so important to associations, that as a revenue driver, as a real value for the members, having pre-event learning or content might really help get the most out of the event itself, but also post-event learning can really help to reinforce some of the content that you talk about in the sessions. Supporting career advancement, really, those certificates, those badges, those micro credentials, making sure that the members are aware of you as a partner in their success. And then possibly, I probably should put an asterisk on this last one, but generating revenue is a way of sustainability. So moving past just the dues and just the events, but opening up multiple points of revenue generation, maybe which could be reinvested back into the association, back into the platform and whatnot. So really learning is at the heart of associations. Its key purpose for associations is, of course, to serve the members, to advance the profession. So more and more people are looking at education in terms of being, really embedded into the core purpose of associations. There's been varying levels of success here. So, and I'm sure on this call there are people who have success stories, and there are probably people who have horror stories as well. So what is some of the things that's worked and what are some of the things that haven't worked? In terms of what's worked, definitely, well, sorry, in terms of the challenges, sorry, I should say, probably the biggest one is time. So people often say that CPD might be a priority in theory, but it's only paused in practice. If you're given a 2-hour CPD course and you only have, 30 minutes at a time a day at most, it's probably not going to be something that you're going to be able to address. So really important to ensure that this learning is appropriate to the time frames or the timetables of your members. Not really aligned with other aspects of the business. If there's not really a sales or an infrastructure foundation set up, it's going to be very difficult for the members to go in and to be able to do this learning. Often that manifests itself in something like you've got some great content, you've got like a really good webinar, which was fantastic, but it was an hour long, you just sort of push it to the members, you don't really get much data back, and then you sort of find yourself wondering, hang on, why isn't this really sort of stuck? But the big one is it's often in terms of the challenges is that often this isn't tied back to KPIs either from a particular member or on the association-wide level. So as a member, I might say, listen, there's no real reason for me to do this. I'm not sure how much it's value because this all comes back to value. I think I've said the word value about 20 times already in this session, but it does come back to value. And if the members aren't valuing that education, it's not really going to be something that's put as a priority. In terms of the success, that's really kind of the inverse of what I just spoke about. So it might be more bite-sized learning if appropriate. It might be led by peers as opposed to coming down from on high from a sort of a theoretical perspective. It's identified as a core need from the members and also the association. It's something that we as an association can deliver, and therefore we're delivering it as well. So really, making that a core part of everyone's role, making it in sync with what it is that you're offering, how you're offering it is very important. So in terms of some of the, what you can do next, it's really sort of important to think, okay, well, let's define the career stages early. So you've got mid-career, early career, mid-career, late career. So let's, work on these strategies for personalization. So what are you going to be looking to achieve in the early parts of your career? You're going to be looking for skill building. You're going to be looking for job readiness and things like certification. For things like the mid-stage career, it might be more like leadership, innovation, networking. And late career, you're looking at board readiness, maybe mentoring, and maybe strategic insight. So making sure that when you're starting to build this out, you have those career stages in mind early, just to make sure that there's user personas for these stages, and then you can tag content, programs, and communication to that. Leveraging or collecting data, very, very important. So a lot of this comes back to surveying your members, making sure you've got the right data to help support you in these programs that you're going to roll out. You can train models. So I'm talking in generalities here, but you can train models, whether that be AI or otherwise, in terms of showing them what you want to do. So you can do this by using collaborative filtering that's based on similar users, like those user profiles, or also filter based on the content that they've engaged with for things like recommendations. Please do remember to include feedback loops to make sure that you're constantly training the model and making sure that it's updating itself and you're getting more and more out of it. AI can also match members for things like peer networking, mentoring, reverse mentoring, things like that. A little bit more on automation later, but also integrations as well. So you have to make sure that it fits in with the existing tech ecosystem in your association. So from there, we're going to go to the next poll. So this is one actually, I'm sure we've all wrestled with this. When you first heard of AI, what concerns did you have? And again, we'll give it a few minutes and then we'll move things along. So did you have concerns about accuracy, privacy, and security? Maybe you had concerns that's just not applicable to you. perhaps the worry of it might actually take my job. And the one I put in there as well. Have you not seen The Terminator? For those of you who haven't seen The Terminator, I think they've got about 100 movies now. But I think the point of the franchise was very much made early on. So yeah, the dystopian nightmares of of machines coming in and taking our jobs. Well, taking more than our jobs. We'll give it another moment or two, and then we'll stop the poll. Okay. And you should be able to see those results as well. And what is that? 71 and 73% of respondents here had problems or concerns about accuracy, privacy and security and whatnot. And you know what? We were exactly the same. Certainly from a business perspective as well, you need to be able to cover off things like privacy and security, data integrity and whatnot. We can't really address the Terminator aspect to it, but you know what? That's probably a question for the other day, for another day. So let me just pop out of here. So yeah, like we did have concerns about using AI initially, or not so much concerns, but just reasons to be cautious. So we really did want to go in with a caution first approach and build things out from there. We understand that AI can be a little bit of a bit of a black box in terms of put something in and it spits it out. And while some people might know very much what it involves, other people might be a little bit less sure of things. So we wanted it to be able to really kind of encapsulate that way of thinking, to be able to work with people in terms of where they were. So a D2L solution in that sort of space, or a D2L solution in terms of personalized learning and profession paths, is actually not in itself AI powered, or it's not in itself AI powered yet, because we wanted people to have that control. We wanted people to have that certainty and for them to know that this is something that is very much automated and very, very helpful, but it's not yet AI powered. However, the learning underneath it can be. And that's something I want to show you in a few moments' time. So you'll be able to generate ideas, learning materials, importing docs based on your expert knowledge. Again, it comes back to your niche expert knowledge, and profession paths sitting on top of that. So something that you can put back into the hands of the learners to really help enhance their roles and not replace anyone. This ties back to a very frequent question that I get. So how can we tailor our offering to meet members where they are? This is the ability to do that. Now, fresh off the press, and this is in the last, say, 24 hours. I'm pretty sure I can announce this. We do have some more functionality coming in terms of study support. So if a learner was to come in and say, hey, listen, sorry, they were to do a quiz, they were to get, say, 5 out of 10 in the quiz, it can come up with suggestions saying, you might want to check this part of the course, or you might want to look at this module again. So really helping personalize things from almost, in that case, an automated sense, but not from the profession path sense. The reason why sort of so much of this is important, and do like to call this out a bit, is the next generation. So they are expecting to change careers every 7 years. So that's not that's not jobs, that's careers, which means that things like personalized learning paths, that micro learning, often given by the associations that they're a member of, is really, really important. And here you can see it just a little bit in practice. Now, I don't want to stay on this slide for too long, but you can see that you're mapping your skills against a competency framework. This is specific to your organization, so something like this might look very, very good to you. It might also look awful. So it is mapped to your organization or your association's competency framework. But the learners can self-assess, they can view recommendations, and sort of bridge that gap between where they are and where they want to be. So let me just have a quick sip of water in my very hot room. So we're now going to look at moving away from legacy technologies like SCORM, which it's been fantastic over the years, but however, it can be very challenging in terms of managing edits or updates when you do have so much content. So you don't want to be able to, sorry, you don't want to need to have to go in and update the same thing in multiple places. You want this to be much more easy so that you can make these changes at scale. So what you really want, whether this is with D2L or with someone else, you want the in-platform ability to create this content yourself without having to know coding, being being an expert in JavaScript or HTML or anything like that. So being able to do it with the expertise that you have on hand. Updates being made much more easily. And really, this is even more crucial for those smaller organizations. So many associations tell me frequently that we're really just treading water in terms of survival. So, can you go and hire a handful of instructional designers? Of course not. We're not able to do that at all. We just want to be able to work with who we've got and be able to get more out of that. To that point, an association that's partnered with us was able to roll out 12 new courses in 4 months because they were able to have their hands on these tools. It's also not linear. Many associations don't actually take advantage of this, but what this means is that if a learner does a particular learning, and depending on maybe what score they've got or what they interact with, they might not necessarily go to the same place that someone else does. So with that in mind, I'm just going to exit out of this. My screen should still be sharing and going into Brightspace itself. Angela, can you just get a thumbs up if you can see my screen? You're looking at Brightspace currently?
I can see it.
Excellent. Just making sure. I still get a bit nervous. People say, "No, we're looking at your emails" or something like that. So we're just going to hop into a course, and we're just going to go over a little bit of content creation. And if the system has logged me out, I'm going to be very upset, which it hasn't. Fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a page at present. So actually, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a whole new one. So we don't have the document at hand. We're going to create new from scratch. My apologies. So we're going to create a page here, and the idea with this, and also with other providers, is that this should be very intuitive to use. Again, this is talking about people who might not have that expert knowledge, being able to go in and create things, and also be able to personalize it to their members. So this looks and feels a lot like Word. You can go and you can write whatever you want here. Please don't write exactly that. But if you're going to do something like perhaps you wanted to brand it with your certain coloring, and you decided, okay, well, I'm going to go in, I'm going to make this yellow on a white background. If you can see this writing, you've got much better eyesight than me, and I've had LASIK eye surgery, so you probably shouldn't. But really, this is practically unreadable. So what you want is a system that helps you with the things that you might not have thought of. Now, this is a pretty obvious example. I don't think anyone would ever do something like this. However, I can see myself doing something like that, especially if I had certain colors that I needed to have the font for branding purposes, or even something like this. So it might not be obvious to a lot of people, but looking at the small text here, the contrast isn't enough. So if some people didn't have the best eyesight, they might struggle to see this. So really important that the system is able to see this and give you those guardrails before you go in and do something that might be quite challenging. You can also do things like you can browse for templates. So this is where you might go in, you might select, yes, I definitely want to replace that horrible writing. You might select something, and all of a sudden you've got a template, you've got accordions which sort of move the content around, and that you're able to show that to the learners. This is me doing it live. This isn't something that I've preloaded or anything like that. This is just ready to go here in Brightspace. So the point being that this is something that is easily able to be updated, edited, and also created by people who aren't necessarily coders. So we come now to the personalization component of this, and this is probably the most important thing because it's easy to sort of get learning, just push it out to the learners and say, here you go, good luck. The trickier bit is what they see and when they see it. So what you can do is you can create sort of release conditions. So once certain thresholds are met, and you can add multiple thresholds here, multiple gateways, only then is the learning available. So perhaps the learner had to earn a particular award, they had to complete a checklist, a particular competency, maybe they authored a post in discussion, whatever that might look like. And again, multiple times negative release conditions. So maybe they haven't done something like this. Really important to be able to ensure that different learners are taken on that journey and that they're going to where you want them to be. Now, as cool and as sexy as AI is, this isn't AI. This is just some relatively standard automation functionality. So if you are ever looking at things and you think, can AI help? The answer may be yes or no, but there are often other avenues to take if AI isn't available. Okay. I might hop back into the slides. And while my sense of humor suggests I should maybe ask Angela again, how do I share my screen? I'm not going to do that. I've learnt my lesson. We're going to head back in here and we're going to, again, move a little bit away from SCORM. We've looked at that in Brightspace. So all of this information, the ability to create the data, the ability to create those release conditions doesn't really mean much if you don't have rich data. So you need to be able to have information on the course. So what's the engagement like? What are the attrition rates? All this comes back to return on investment, of course. And this means that you can control what the learner sees and when they see it, which is something that I've just sort of mentioned. So moving past simply, oh, was it completed? Did they get an award? To ask questions that really leverage the data in a more meaningful way. So suppose a learner goes onto a particular page, they're only there for a few moments. Couple questions could come up. Maybe they're a fast learner. Maybe they're not engaged with this particular page at all. Or maybe if you actually look at it not from the learner perspective, but from the course material perspective, maybe there's a problem with the page. Maybe the content's not quite right. You've got a problem there. If you think that they should be spending 5 minutes on a given page, or if it's a webinar or a video that's like a 10-minute long webinar and they're only there for 30 seconds, then something might be wrong. So really the next step after that is to get those better insights, to think about how you might grow certain aspects of the courses that you're offering. Is this something that you can improve on? Or is this something that maybe is plateaued and you've probably got the most out of a particular set of course content of pages or whatever that might look like? It's worth mentioning that if you do have high satisfaction, if you've got high satisfaction, high completion rates of a given course, you can also reasonably assume that this is going to start word of mouth and that is going to manifest itself in higher completion rates and renewal rates for you in terms of that membership renewal that really affects your bottom line. So with that in mind, I think I've got a screen here, but it's probably easier if we see this in Brightspace. So I'm going to hop back into Brightspace. We're going to cancel out of this, and we're just going to look at some of the stats. And I'm going to put Angela on the spot. So I'm sorry to do this, Angela, but you know what? I think I'm going to ask you relatively straightforward questions. So don't be afraid. I cancel. Are you sure on this card? Yes, I do. So let's just hop out of this. Let's just taking a moment to load. Here we go. And let's look at the progress. So we're just looking at the progress at a glance. I've certainly never shown you a picture of this before, Angela, but just sort of based on what we're seeing here, can you get a bit of a feel for who might be struggling a little bit and who might be doing all right?
Yeah. Shirley looks like she may need a little bit of a check-in phone call, I dare say.
Absolutely. For those of you who may or may not understand this joke, surely she can't be serious. But yeah, Shirley might be struggling. She's only done 5% of the courses or the course. She hasn't received any scores. Frank looks like he's on an upward trajectory, so that's starting to look quite promising. And you can go through relatively quickly. You can see how people are going just at a glance. So quick, easy, intuitive to use. Don't worry, Angela, I'm not going to pick on you anymore. If we do hop into Jamal here, we can see that, okay, he started off all right. He's maybe tapered off a little bit. You know, what does this mean? So we can go and we can look at the content. We can see that he's had a quick assessment for 1 minute and 2 seconds. He's been in the knowledge sheet for 2 minutes 17 and this peer teaching for 12 seconds. So you might think, okay, maybe there's something up with Jamal, or maybe there's something up with the content. what this means is that if we put this together, you can start to do things like automated actions. They used to be called intelligent agents, which I thought was really cool. I thought it was very James Bond. But I think we're just calling them agents from now on. So this is using this data. This is using the content that we've got, and it's putting everything together. So if, for instance, someone was to get a low score on the quiz, you can automate actions to prompt them. It might prompt you to give them a phone call, to Angela's point, or it might automate something like an email. So in this particular case, it might be something like, hey, listen, we noticed you got a lower score on quizzes 1 and 2. Therefore, we might want to review certain content. So evaluating opportunities, competitive process. It might be the inverse of this. It might be something more along the lines of, listen, we saw you got a great result. Good on you. You're doing really, really well. Please do keep it up. Or it might be something more like, listen, we noticed that you haven't logged into Brightspace in a couple of weeks. Just wanted to check in with you and check that everything was okay. So again, this comes back to automating particular actions that you can do to take this off your plate and enable you to both arrest maybe some of those attrition rates or low engagement rates that you see, but do this at scale so that you don't need to be calling up, 50 people a day or a week or anything like that. You can see this early, it can go through, and hopefully you can sort of keep that support aspect of where things are with your learners. So just in terms of maybe some examples of associations that have done that with D2L, I've got a handful of examples here. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through all of them. Sorry, I think I've accidentally gone a little bit further than I should have there. The Australian Dental Association New South Wales, they came to us because they were looking for personalised journeys. That was the first thing that they said, personalised learner journeys, and they're actually looking to do that through AI. Although eventually they came to the realization that that doesn't necessarily need to be done via AI because it was something that we could offer as things stand. Their goal was to increase the number of eligible members in the state. And I think they're midway through implementation now. The second one was the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales. So Real Estate Institute, they had some very high compliance sort of hoops that they had to jump through. Obviously, if a real estate agent isn't compliant on certain things, that can mean a contract is torn up, that commissions are withdrawn, some pretty big consequences there. So making sure that they were able to give really robust learning to their users or to their members to ensure that everyone was compliant. They implemented in 12 weeks, and they were able to double both the learner numbers but also the learner satisfaction. So the learner satisfaction actually increased by 100%. The last one I wanted to talk about right in the middle there was ANSCA. So they utilize a self-directed learning experience. This enabled them to identify courses that are important to their members and to be able to offer those courses as well. So offer different courses to different cohorts based on what was important to them. They've been with us since 2014. They've had a steady upward trajectory in that time. At one stage, I think they did want to shake things up a bit and went through what was effectively a re-implementation, which we were able to support them with and help increase those learner numbers year on year. So we're getting towards the end now. I think we've got about 19 minutes. And the last one, because I've talked a little bit about AI, and I certainly don't want to give the impression that AI is bad or that we don't like it or whatnot. I think, again, the D2L approach was to approach it with a little bit more caution, but certainly to be an AI-led company. So to what extent have you adopted AI technology in your day-to-day work, with day-to-day life or your work life? Do you use it every day? Most days, you seldom use it, or perhaps you don't even use it at all. And again, we'll give this one just a few more moments. We'll say the answers are surprising at present. And we'll give it about another 4 or 5 seconds, Emily. Excellent. and people should be able to see those results. So interestingly enough, 32% of you, approximately a third, say that it's something that you use every day, whether it be your work life or your day-to-day life. Another 45% use it most days. I'd probably fall under that category myself. I use it most days now. Interestingly enough, I have seen surveys that say something to the effect of 80% of people want to use it, but less than 1% actually get round to integrating it into their day-to-day life. So perhaps things are changing there. Perhaps this is something that's being adopted more and more from the from the general population, but it's encouraging to see that actually. So we're just going to finish just with a few actionable steps. I always love to have really sort of day-to-day actionable takeaways in terms of what it is that you can do starting today even to be able to adopt technology. So the first one is to start small. Just literally, if you haven't already, and it sounds as if I'm preaching to the converted with this particular group, but please do, download ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is on your phone. Start to have a play around. There is a toggle button. I think it's something to the effect of training the LLM or something like that. Toggle that off if privacy is a concern of yours, which it is for most people, as we saw before. Give it instructions. I gave ChatGPT, I said, listen, please give me things in bullet points. If you don't know the answer, please do tell me. Don't hallucinate. And please do cite your sources as well. So giving it those prompts at the start is a really key way to start things. Again, if you're looking to just dip your toes in, start easy. Start with some generic questions that are very low risk. If you get it wrong, what should I cook tonight? I'm running out of ideas, whatever that might look like. The second point here is really comes down to information, which I've come back to a few times. So surveying members and staff, assessing what their current digital maturity is like, seeing what those gaps might be, and understanding what the priorities are. The third one is about setting a clear vision. So defining the why in a particular business case and creating return on investment narrative. So this might help you with things like executive buy-ins. If you are looking at adopting new technology, you really want to be able to have those stories, the projected impacts for the leadership to be able to say, listen, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're likely to see, and this is what our hopes are for this project. Fourth, prioritizing member-centric solutions. So you may even involve users when you're choosing and testing tools. That might not be a bad idea at all to involve your members at that early phase as pilot groups. You probably want to start with those visible and valuable features so that you can have those high impact wins early. For the rollout, definitely consider whether a pilot might be a good idea. Are there any quick sprints that you can do? And can you get ongoing feedback to continue to enhance what it is that you're going to be offering as you roll it out? So feedback loops aren't just for creating those proficient paths or training AI models. It also is something that you can do when adopting the technology into your association, making sure that you're constantly testing and retesting if what you're doing is working. Finally, embedding it into strategic planning. So yeah, if you're embedding things into strategic plans, maybe that might be the KPIs that I talked about before, saying, listen, as an association, we want to have KPIs on learner engagement, things like that. But making sure that you don't just see education as an operational cost. It's actually a strategic asset, and it's something that really needs to be reviewed annually so that you're constantly going back and thinking, is this working for us? Are there efficiencies that can be gained and so on and so forth. So just making sure that you're really getting the most out of what it is that you're offering your members. So I'm gonna end it there. I think we've got about 4 or 5 minutes to go. Please do, if you do want to get in touch with me, please feel free to reach out and email me. That's my email address there. I didn't mention it before, but we do have an ebook on ways that you might use education to help generate revenue. So if you do scan that code, you can get a free version of that particular ebook. We do have a white paper coming out, hopefully in the next week or so, that we can release as well. So please do ask me about that in the next few days. But yeah, certainly the ebook on diversifying revenue streams is one that's well worth reading if that's an interest of yours. With that in mind, I might hand it back, Angela, to you. Have there been any questions that have come up in the chat?
I have, but I was going to say I've had a sneak peek at the white paper and I've read the ebook, and it's great because there's a lot of first-hand case studies about what other associations are doing. So there are a couple of questions in the chat, Jeremy. I think if we start with Michelle's, do you find that growth through personalised learning is more achievable when associations have an eligibility scale to be met for association entry, or can learning and developing an accreditation or certification process secondary to association membership be just as effective? It's a big question.
It is a big question, and the first thing that came to my mind is when I talked about the associations that have success versus those that don't. Um, the associations that see success through education are often professional associations, so there might be a specific eligibility or a formal one, but it's very much implied if you're if you're an RACGP, if you're a doctor, there is like an eligibility framework there, right? I don't think it's exclusive to professional memberships. I think it comes back to how robust it is in the particular organization. So is this something that, maybe building a professional path with them is something that's included in the onboarding? So when they start to sign up with you, immediately they're aware that education is at the heart of the offering. Is this, and I know I've harped on about it a bit, but is it involved or included in the strategic plan? So if it's really front and center, I don't think it's disqualifying at all. But at the same time, the associations that have most success with education are those professional associations.
There is another question there too, Jeremy. Do the training educational offers need to be only technology related topics, or could they also be on soft skills?
I think we're seeing more and more growth in the soft skills, just in broad terms. We're seeing more and more, like it doesn't always have to be online either, by the way. So there is often a blend of in-person and online training. But in terms of the online, in terms of the soft skills, you see it so much, especially with that sense of people changing careers so frequently. If you are offering a course, how to manage people 101 or something like that. It might not be something that someone has actually studied in the past, but being able to get that information as a micro credential or a certificate from your association is something that we're seeing more and more. So I would encourage those sorts of courses to be put on your as part of your offering. Really just helps add to the general value of what it is that you're offering to members.
Now, if anybody wants to take the mic and ask a question as well too, please feel free to do that. Michelle's come back and said, thank you so much. Good to hear different perspectives. Michelle, I was just going to say to you, I ran a podcast with Megan Edwards from KITA, who's the English Teaching Association, and they run their courses not because they need to, there's no eligibility framework. Yeah. They run it just as a supplementary piece for their members. So there is some really interesting pieces out there if you want to dive into. Happy to share that if anybody is interested. But if we have any last questions, this is your chance. You can grab the mic if you want to ask something that's a little bit more direct. Is anybody got any last pieces that they want to get from Jeremy? If not, we will be sharing a copy of today's recording. You will have his contact details, so you can go back out and have a chat to him directly. Highly recommend you sign up for the white paper. I'm officially waiting. It's been coming for 3 months, so I'm very, very excited. I always love seeing the case studies of what other associations are doing, because I feel by sharing that, it's a really great way to see what's working and what's not working. But if we don't have any other questions, Jeremy, a huge thank you for stepping through those pieces today around how we can look at this and how we can actually adopt and look at the personalization piece. And thank you to everybody that's also come along today.